Let's go ahead and see what we are going to talk about this today. All right, for changing careers, once you've decided and you need to know what's next, the topics that we want to discuss today are evaluating the plan. You really do need to have a career change plan in place. So how can you evaluate that? We'll talk about how you can build skills and experience to have an easier career change. And there are some things in terms of your job search that you'll want to consider adjusting as you make this move as well. As I promised, we will also be doing an audience Q&A at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and start discussing the first topic, evaluating your plan to change careers. So before diving right into your career change, there are a few key things that you'll want to evaluate in order to determine the best way for you to move forward and be successful at finding a new job, but not only a new job, a new career. The first thing you need to do is think about and evaluate how you choose your new career path. So ideally, career changes should take place after a good amount of self-reflection and consideration of all of your potential options. So many times when we are fed up with what we're doing and we know we need a change, we just dive into, applying for jobs and moving forward. And oftentimes that's not as successful as quickly as we want it to be. So taking time to brainstorm and reflect on what exactly it is you want to do is going to be so much easier for you in the long run because you want to make sure you've chosen a new path that's going to bring you the type of fulfillment professionally that you are seeking. And also it's something that you are capable of being successful doing in a professional capacity. So the next thing to consider then is whether you are planning a significant change or just transitioning to a different role in your same field. So considering this question is really important because the answer is going to impact the amount of time and effort that your career change might take. And this isn't to discourage anybody from making a change that might require more time and effort, but it's important to know what you are committing to before you make that change so that you can manage your expectations and also have a more effective game plan to get from point A to point B. All right, so once you do those two things, you want to assess the skills, education, or experience that you might be missing or you might need to make this successful career transition. So think about the things you potentially lack so you can start to develop ways to fill in those gaps, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, how you can compensate for some of those deficits that you might have as you're doing your research. So identifying the skills you need, the credentials or licensing that might be required, or even levels of experience that are preferred, again, is going to help you create the most effective plan to begin your new career. And finally, you definitely want to evaluate what transferable skills you already have that are going to be helpful in the new field because transferable skills, you can lean on those and leverage them a lot as you are working to make a change. In the same way that you should know areas that you want to upskill or plan to gain to make a successful transition, you also want to know what you already bring to the table. So no matter what career path you are trying to pursue, chances are you have at least some transferable skills. They might be soft skills, they might be technical skills or the hard skills that we talk about, but you definitely want to identify and showcase those to potential future employers. Fully understanding these skills that you already have in comparison to what you might be lacking also can help you understand how easy or challenging your planned career change might be. All right, so now you have to review some details about your new path. So this slide is a screenshot from a website, ONET online. onetonline.org. So there are websites like this available where you will be able to learn a ton of information about different careers. And chances are pretty good that you may have already used some websites like this to help you previously, or you're already at this stage in your process in terms of your career change. But these types of websites can be extremely valuable in understanding the intricacies of different roles like tasks and responsibilities, determining the technical and transferable skills you might have or need for this role, and also a wide range of other helpful information that you should consider as you prepare to make your career change. All right. The other thing that you'll want to consider is, do you need some specific training for your career change? This is a screenshot from a website called careeronestop.org. It's similar to ONET. And it can also help you determine the type of education and training that is most commonly required for different roles. So this type of information is important to research ahead of time because the career in which you are trying to enter might have, specific or certain requirements that you need to fulfill before you can successfully make that career change. So if a particular job you are considering requires a certain degree level or a specific type of license or certification, you definitely want to know about that so you can then put a plan together to establish those qualifications and how you're going to get those qualifications, rather. So you can kind of see that you can, go through some of these different trainings that might be needed for certain careers. And that's Career One Stop as the website. All right. So this also includes a career change. Yes, you've got those resources, but then from those resources, with those resources, leaning into them, you do want to do some different research and employ different methods to evaluate your plan. So keep in mind, when you're conducting research, it's so helpful in making a more informed decision when you want to transition to a new role. So in addition to the websites we just mentioned, Career One Stop and ONET, you can also review position descriptions for jobs that closely match your new career of choice. So position descriptions for jobs that you are hoping to pursue are really a great way to determine the qualifications, the skills, and experience you should have to make you a qualified candidate for these types of roles. Now, notice we have not talked about looking at job descriptions until now. So to really put together an effective career change plan, you have to do some pre-work before you start diving into job descriptions. And of course, the job descriptions are an important part of your research. You want to make sure that you have a really good understanding of what a company, or in other words, your audience, is seeking in a potential candidate, so you can highlight the things that will make you competitive for the roles. Be sure to look carefully at whether certain qualifications are required or preferred, and keep in mind the 60% rule. Some of you may have heard us talk about this before, but you do not need to meet 100% of the qualifications for a job that you are applying for. That's the employer's ideal situation, if that's available to them, but they know that it's not likely that they're going to find somebody that meets 100% of the qualifications all of the time. So you can put together a really competitive application if you meet 60% of the job requirements. If you review a job description and you can confidently say that you have done, or at least know or have done 60% of what is listed, then you're a solid candidate. Your chances get higher, of course, if they're higher than 60%, but this is a really good baseline to use. Also, in the age of AI, leveraging these tools can be really helpful. There are many different tools available. We won't be talking about all of them in depth, but certain tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Perplexity, they can help aid in your research. Using a simple prompt with ChatGPT, like, "What does a project manager do?" Or what are the most important skills and qualifications needed to be a successful marketing coordinator? Questions like that really give you a lot of helpful information to initiate your research and can then help you develop your plan. You can also ask an AI tool more detailed follow-up questions about roles or industries that are of interest to you, as well as asking questions about specific companies of interest. You could even say, I want to make a career change to a project manager. Currently, I am an accounting coordinator, and is my resume. What skills should I highlight? And you can get a lot of information from doing something like that as a prompt as well. Another tool that I think we forget about, but is really useful, is talking to somebody doing the work you want to do. So doing an informational interview is a great research method, especially if you know someone in this type of role. And if you don't, it's also a really great networking opportunity. So conducting online research and reviewing positions and job descriptions is really good, but talking to somebody really gets you to the heart of the issue, if you will. You can hear directly from people working in the types of roles you are considering to help you gain, even more like practical insights into what your action plan should look like to help make this transition to a new career. You could ask somebody, what would make me be the most competitive candidate to transition into this career? Asking questions of someone who has already pursued the career path will help you learn tips to streamline your efforts and really avoid timely or time-consuming and costly, mistakes along the way. And since we're talking about informational interviews, which really, involves networking, you also do want to consider your broader network. If you don't know anyone specifically who works in a role that you are considering, think about tapping into your network for a connection. For example, people like former colleagues, family, friends, college alumni, neighbors, and people from any groups you might already be a part of, like book clubs or volunteer organizations. They can really help you gain connections to other people who can serve as valuable sources of information for you. All right. So after you fully reviewed and evaluated your career change plan, what you want to do, now you have a strong understanding of the types of skills, the types of experience and qualifications you may need to gain in order to make yourself, this competitive candidate for this type of role. Now, the next step is to start thinking about ways that you can improve your marketability and chances of success in your new field. So how can you build skills and experience? Well, hopefully through the analysis that you've done and the research of your potential career change plan, you should have been able to successfully identify goals to help you get to where you want to be. And once you have an understanding of what those goals might be, it's time to start putting this plan in place to help you achieve those goals. So the first thing you want to do is make sure to ask yourself, how can you make yourself more attractive to employers? If you are simply transitioning to a new career within your current field or moving into a very similar one, this can be as simple as revising and reorganizing your resume to better emphasize the transferable skills you already possess that are highly relevant to your new roles of interest. If you are making a drastic change, this can be as complex as applying to and completing degree programs or certification courses. Either way, you want to have a good idea of what you can do to make yourself more marketable to a new audience. Hopefully, when you evaluated your career change plan, you were able to identify some skills or experience that you might need to brush up on or gain to help you execute this plan. You also want to make sure your plan follows a logical order. Just like when you first began your current career field, you do want to create some order to your career change action plan. You can't be expected to learn everything all at once, so you have to put some prioritization and goals in place on the things that you want to learn and gain in order to, effectively execute this plan. This will help you tackle the essential things first, then build on new skills, experience, and attributes as you move along. It can often be helpful if you start by building on the things you already know and making sure you understand what should come first, second, third, and so on down the line. It will save you some frustration if you do this because not having a plan or organization can, cause you to waste time in the future. And finally, you want to remind yourself that bridging a large gap in skills can take some time. This is not a problem, okay? So you don't have to, this is not something to worry about. It's just a matter of managing your expectations of the time and effort that may be required for you to get from point A to point B. So if you need a new job immediately, maybe you've been laid off, or your company closed or something like that, you might want to have an intermediate plan in place. Sometimes people will seek out like what some people call a bridge job or a stepping stone job available that you can do while you are going through all of these steps to get to your ultimate goal of the career change and the new career you want to enter. Another part of this plan to help you gain experience in your new field includes volunteering. So, as you think through your plan, this might be a really great way to build skills and experience to get you a more competitive candidacy for the type of roles that you are ultimately seeking. Volunteering might not be relevant for everybody, depending on what you've selected, but it can be a great way to help you start applying new skills, building up your level of experience for jobs in many different industries, and of course, networking. Um, it's worth considering taking some time to research organizations that might be willing to take you on in a volunteer capacity so you can start to generate experience and apply your skills in a way that will be more relevant to your new career of choice. This also can give you material that you might be able to include in a portfolio if that's needed in your new job, or to provide you with an opportunity to discuss relevant skills or experience on your resume and during a job interview. You may already have connections with a nonprofit organization local to you that you could leverage, but also websites like idealist.org and volunteermatch.org. You can also search volunteer opportunities there, and you might uncover something that you hadn't thought of. And any step that you can take towards your career change is the right one. All right. I don't know if any of you have heard of returnships. They seem to have become a little bit more popular over the last couple of years, and this is really another great way of gaining experience. It's really an adult internship to a degree, and you might think of internships as being solely for college kids, but there are some companies who do offer adult internships and return to work programs for those who already have some career experience. So we certainly encourage you to look into that. We do have a webinar specifically on this topic, but really briefly, I want to talk about it here. Returnships are very similar to internships, as I've said, but usually companies will specify an amount of time that you need to be away from the workforce, for example, to care for a loved one or to raise kiddos. Either way, it can be helpful to look into programs like this to help you build experience and establish connections in the new field you are trying to go into. It's definitely something to consider. At least researching as part of your action plan. Participating in something like a well-organized returnship can, as I mentioned, give you that experience, but also help you be more competitive and attractive to future employers once you've completed the program and added it to your resume. Think about if you do a returnship, the professional relationships that you will also build with people who might then be willing to serve as a reference or a recommendation to you as you apply to other roles. Additionally, these types of programs also can give you a wealth of applicable skills and knowledge in a shorter period of time, just like with more traditional internships. So they do actually add a lot of professional value in sort of a quick time frame. All right, upskilling. I've kind of alluded to this a little bit as we've been going through the presentation. So I have mentioned it before, but you will likely identify some areas where you need to enhance your existing skill set or build new skills entirely. This is what we call upskilling. So think about what skills are most essential to this new career path, and then you can prioritize from there. Again, an AI tool might be really useful in this instance, using to research what courses, tutorials, trainings, and maybe any other opportunities that you could lean into to learn these skills, starting with the most important. Um, in terms of the options that are available to help you here, you can likely find a wealth of sources with a wide range of availability. There are likely free things that you could look at doing a simple search on Google or YouTube. There might be free videos and tutorials, and there are certainly going to be more structured, like professional courses that you would be able to take, like maybe through Coursera or Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, that can help you quickly learn these skills. Now, the skills that you can build in these types of courses and then combine with the application of them through volunteering or a returnship or internship can definitely add value on your resume. You're probably, visualizing that right now. Any other trainings or certifications or even degree programs, while they can be costly and time consuming, it's not necessarily an issue in and of itself, but it is just some knowledge that you should have so you can prepare if there is a cost involved. Certain careers, project management is one where you can get a project management certification, for example. Those exams and the training programs or courses to help you prepare for them do have a fee associated with them. And so that's something that you want to take into account. But either way, you definitely want to analyze the cost and the time required versus the impact you think this will have on your career change and on your professional life, and evaluate what you'd like to do with that information. If it seems like the cost of changing careers greatly outweighs the impact for you in your situation, you might need to kind of backtrack in your plan and kind of reevaluate, not necessarily start over, but see what might be another option for me that may not cost as much or require as much time to get from where I am today to this new career. All right, so before we get to the Q&A, I do want to talk about what you need to think about and change, potentially with your job search tactics when you are changing careers. So let's dive into this. So you've decided to change careers. We've gone through the evaluation and put together a plan in place so that we can transition to a new role, which includes gaining essential skills and experience. So now it's time to put this all into action and start searching for and applying to jobs within your new field. All right. And I think it's important to know, as I've said multiple times in this presentation already, you do need to, manage your expectations for a career change. A job search typically takes a handful of months, and sometimes a career change can take more. It can be hard to transition careers. And that's okay. It's okay to do that if you know what your ultimate goal is and you have a very clear picture of where you want to be. All right. It isn't a reason to give up on a career change, but it's really important to know that it can be challenging to change careers, at least at first. So having, the right mindset, preparing yourself mentally for some of the challenges that you might encounter, that's going to help this whole process really unfold in a much more positive way. So we always like to point that out because I think it's important. Job searching is hard in general. Career change is hard as well, but it's not impossible. And when you want to make a change, if you put a solid plan in place and execute it well, you're going to get to where you want to be. You want to, along the way, pay attention to the things that are working, think about what might not be working, and then adapt your strategies as needed as you're going. You don't want to go with just one certain job tactic and hope it works, but really diversify your strategies all along the way. So some of these strategies that you may have used in the past, but you certainly want to consider using now are things like using a variety of job titles and keywords to search and apply for job through job boards. You don't just need to use one job title. Use some of those transferable skills as keywords to see what jobs might be in that industry or in that career field that you are looking to get into. Conducting a reverse job search is also something that we recommend too, is where you research specific companies of interest first, look at their open roles posted, and then see if one that interests you is open right now, but also you can put levers in place to follow that company on LinkedIn. You can follow them on FlexJobs if you're a FlexJobs member. Different things like that allow you to keep in touch with companies. On LinkedIn, you also can, in their job section, click a little button that says interested in employment here, and that way you'll be alerted when jobs are posted. Attempting to network with other professionals in your new industry, we've discussed already for informational interviews, but also this allows you to have those connections who, when an opportunity might be coming and isn't even posted yet, you have those relationships established and you might be the first to know. You can also leverage your own direct connections to help you find different job leads. And all of these are really great tactics that you want to consider. And no single tactic is the exact right approach every time, which is why you want to continually evaluate your methods to see what is working and what's not. So trying different strategies also means that some of your strategies might not work, and that should also not discourage you. This is why with your evaluations method, you're going to make changes and adjustments as you're going along the way, because that is what's going to maximize your chances of success. All right, so regardless of what strategies and tactics you are using and adjusting and removing and adding in to get to your new career, you definitely want to make sure you highlight your strengths. This happens in a number of different ways. I mentioned a portfolio earlier. So you can link samples of your work. You have that portfolio. You also can add featured work to your LinkedIn profile. You also could add a link to your profile or your portfolio, excuse me, on LinkedIn. And really what that does is having examples of your work to display to potential employers gives them more confidence that you can replicate that type of work for them in the future. In fact, this is why a lot of professions are now including different types of assessments as part of their hiring process. You may have encountered these prior to a job interview, like a screening process. It's kind of like a prove it step, if you will, in the process. Now, for other fields where a portfolio isn't relevant, it can be helpful to identify a person or two, perhaps from your volunteer experience or an internship, that you can use as a reference. You want this to be someone who really can speak to the strengths that you possess that are specifically relevant to your new career field, as well as speak positively about the quality of your work, your professionalism, and other transferable skills. It's also a good idea to consider asking people to provide you with a recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, as employers and recruiters and people who are hiring usually review LinkedIn profiles before they ever reach out to your references. So having something there already gives them insight into the type of employee you would be for them as well. No matter what field you are choosing to enter, you want to think about relevant examples and stories from past work experience, those volunteer opportunities we've been mentioning, and other upskilling efforts that you've put into place that you can include on your resume. You also could add it in your cover letter, of course, your LinkedIn profile, and you have space to discuss this during an interview or networking conversation. This allows you to sort of market yourself, sell yourself as it relates to your new field of interest. We mentioned this earlier, but you always want to be considering who is your audience and make sure when you're having conversations or providing written information on your resume and cover letter that the information is what the audience wants to see, that it's relevant to them. It's desirable to them. It's important to them. And that's how you want to think about highlighting your strengths. And finally, we mentioned, highlighting your strengths, right? But also you need to tailor your tactics to the jobs that you are applying for. If you've been in the job search for a while, you likely know it's important to tailor your resume and cover letter to each job that you apply for. Even tailoring some of your examples that you give in an interview is really important. So for each job that you consider applying to, make sure that you are carefully paying attention to the job description. We've talked about applicant tracking systems on our website and also in some of our other webinars. This is a way for employers to scan resumes for keywords, to file their applicants, to sort through their applicants based on their relevancy to the job. So this is why your application materials should be tailored. Additionally, recruiters and hiring managers spend such a short time skimming resumes, so you really want to work to capture their attention, and you can do that by integrating those keywords, skills, and phrases from the job posting that are going to resonate with them, so they want to keep learning more about you. One of the best places to tailor your resume is a professional summary and key skills section at the top of your document that you will be able to tailor for each position. You don't need to start from scratch every time and write a brand new resume. But the professional summary and key skills section at the top is really where you can tailor and highlight, I sort of say to kind of get the most bang for your buck, if you will, first in that section. And then throughout the other parts of your resume, you could add some skills and phrases as well that mirror the language that you see on the job description. We do have samples in the resources section of the webinar that you can look at specific resume examples showing you a profile summary and key skills section if you haven't done one previously. Again, this can be really helpful for career changes too, because you're going to be able to highlight the specific skills that you have. This is all done in order to make it easy and possible for an employer to understand that you are a strong candidate for the position. You're giving them the information they need to see this, to envision you in the role. So taking the time to tailor your documents before you apply to jobs is going to be really critical in making sure that you have ultimate success in landing a new role. All right, so before we get to the Q&A, here are the things that you want to do to have a successful career change, and we'll just briefly go through them. First, you want to evaluate your plan. Think about your transferable skills and abilities. This includes thinking about the skills or experience you might be lacking that you can gain in order to help you be a competitive candidate for those employers that you're seeking out. Then you want to develop that list of skills that you need to build and how you can gain experience, making sure that the action plan you have for yourself has some tangible, achievable ways to gain and to compensate for any deficits you might currently have. Next, you're going to adjust your job search tactics and strategies. Once you progress through the early stages of your action plan and are ready to apply for jobs in your new field, evaluate what's working and what isn't, and adjust strategies accordingly as you go through the process. Finally, tailoring your application documents for specific roles. Pay attention to what your audience wants to see. Review the job descriptions thoroughly. Get those keywords and skills and phrases into your resume and cover letter, and plan out the relevant things that you have done or learned that will help in your interviews and will resonate with the employer. By following these action steps, you can help increase your chances of successfully changing your career, and hopefully you're going to get that position that will be more professionally fulfilling for you in the future. All right. So, as a reminder, we've got the recording coming your way in the next few days. For even more information, please feel free to check out the FlexJobs blog, flexjobs.com/blog. There are thousands of articles on any topic you can imagine in your job search. So, please don't forget about that. And now let's go ahead and get to our questions. Hey, y'all, it's Tony. Let's get to our questions. Thanks for being here today, by the way. Hopefully, this has been helpful. What if you want a career change, but you do not exactly know what the new career is going to be? What steps would you take to identify that new path? Well, hopefully, this content was helpful in sort of laying out some things that you need to do. I think the most important thing when you want to do a career change or you're feeling pulled in that direction, a lot of times what people do is they just know what it is they are running from. I don't want to do X anymore. I don't want to do Y anymore, whatever that is, instead of spending some time figuring out what it is they want to run to. Yes, you want to get out of what you're doing, but you need to figure out what it is you really want to do, which is your question. So the steps that I would take have to do with first the brainstorming and the research. Like you really want to do some skills assessments, go to Career One Stop, go to ONET, use resources like the FlexJobs blog to learn about different careers and different things that you can do. You really want to know what are some of your key skills and strengths that you have, that can help you or that you want to leverage in your next role. One other thing that you can do, and we didn't talk a lot about it in the presentation, but I've seen some questions that, this answer would apply to as well, is with those key skills that you have. Like, for example, if I were to look for something else to do, one of the things I really enjoy is public speaking and facilitation. So I might use public speaking, the plus sign, and the word facilitation in any job search I do, because that is going to run, at least on the FlexJobs site, the search to find jobs on our site that have the words public speaking and facilitation. And that way you're not worrying about different job titles. And then if you're still trying to figure out what you want to do after you've done some of those assessments, what you can do is kind of read through some of those job descriptions and see if that might be something that you want to do. And what would be required from that. So those are some things that I would think about as I was getting started. Didn't choose to, but have to likely change careers due to my position being eliminated. No real opportunities for similar roles in my previous industry as they don't exist at smaller companies. How can I convince prospective employers that my transferable skills can be an asset? So many companies want very specific skills, and I'm more of a generalist that can adapt very easily. Thoughts on the best way to proceed? Well, first, this is going to come in. We talked about this on your resume and in your cover letter in terms of highlighting those transferable skills. Now, when you are in an interview and you are talking about, somebody asks you a question, a lot of interviews have behavioral based questions like, tell me about a time when you did X or overcame conflict on your team or something along those lines. So what I would do is I would come up with little career stories, illustrations, or anecdotes about ways that you can use those a specific transferable skill to the type of job that you are applying for and what that might look like in that particular role. And so you really what you need to do to proceed is to connect the dots for the potential employer and give sort of that illustration and focus on what some of those strengths are. And obviously, as you said, as a generalist, you're really good at a lot of things. So you can highlight some specific things that would match or be the most relevant to the jobs that you are interviewing for to really paint that picture for a potential employer. Are there resources for moving backwards in your career? Following a successful, technical career, I am now pre-retirement looking for part-time, long-term role, remote or on-site, doing generic office support, customer representative, etc. What I would do here is, we have some webinars on ageism that kind of speak to a little bit of this, but in general, what you want to do if you do not want a role that is like a managerial role, for example, but more of an individual contributor role, instead of focusing on your years of experience and your job titles on your resume and in your cover letter, you're really going to hone in on the key skills that you have, transferable and matching for the roles that you are applying to. And that's really what you want to do there. Also, for any of these, for a lot of these questions in a career change or going back to do something else in your career that maybe you started doing and then moved up and now you want to just kind of settle in a little bit before you retire, is update and manage those LinkedIn profiles or any other digital networking profiles that you might have to really match the job that you are seeking versus the job that you have. And so that is sort of like a personal branding exercise that will need to happen for any career change or moving backwards in a career or something like that. Let's see. Can FlexJobs provide resources for free, affordable on micro-credential courses, including Power BI, AI analytics, etc. I don't know anything very specifically here, but what I would do is I would look at places like Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, even Google does have some courses. Now, some will be free, some won't be free. Also, if you have anybody in your network that is doing this type of work, you may reach out to them or look at their LinkedIn profiles to see what courses or certifications they have done to maintain their competitiveness in that role, or that type of role rather. Is 58 too old to start a business? And I'm not sure what the end of that was, but this is definitely a very personal decision. And certainly, my opinion would be no, but there's a lot that goes into starting a business. I don't know. You can start a freelance business for very little investment. You can buy a franchise for, any price range really, from $15,000 to over $1 million in terms of starting your own business. So I think that it's important to, again, go through the process of deciding, is this something you really want to do? Where are your strengths? Who will you be able to lean on when you come up against a challenge? What is your financial situation and how does that match your goal of starting your own business? And so this is something that I think requires a business plan. It requires some, introspective thinking and research in terms of what your business model might be. And those things you'll have to answer, for you as an individual. What steps can I take to explore this new career and how can I determine if it aligns with my values and purpose? Thank you so much. Well, certainly we've talked about the steps that you can take to identify what you might do. Now, I think that once you sort of narrow something down and you're trying to decide, is this really going to be right for me? The best thing that you can do is talk to somebody who is doing the type of work you want to do. So you might already know somebody, which is great. That makes it a lot easier. If not, you might be able to find somebody on LinkedIn. You might be able to find somebody through talking to other people in your network, but really doing informational interviews or identifying a mentor who may be able to help you and talk you through the process to change to this career. Informational interviews are really great because you can ask questions like, what are some of the challenges in this industry? What do you feel like the 5 and 10-year outlook might be for career growth in this industry? What do you really like about this role and what don't you like about this role? So talking to people that have sort of paved the way already can really offer you some additional insight as you're looking to, solidify your decision and determine if that really is the career change that is right for you going forward. All right, we'll do one more question as I know we're already out of time, but let's see here. I find jobs that I would like to explore, and I can see from the job descriptions of this I may need to learn and get certified for. But a lot of these want you to already have experience. Do we just spend the money to get certified and hope we can find a job that is okay with the certification and no actual experience? This is always something that's really a challenge too. Just like starting your own business, deciding if you're going to invest money in a certification or any courses or a degree is certainly something that is a personal decision. Again, I'm going to circle back to talking through informational interviews and people who are doing the type of work that you want to do, because they can be very valuable resources for you to helping you make these decisions in terms of, does it make sense for you to do this? They might have some unique ideas for you to gain experience outside of volunteering or internships or returnships or things like that. So those are some things that I would do or speak to somebody in an informational interview about, because again, it's going to shed some light on how important is an actual certification or degree in this area. Like I think about project management, for example, it's a very competitive field, but there are a lot of job opportunities and it is a growing field. I do think having a certification seems to be uh, something that is most frequently required or can make you an even more competitive applicant, particularly if you are lighter on the experience. And so that might be something that's worth it to you, determine is worth it to you to seek out if that's the type of role that you want to go into. So it's definitely weighing the pros and cons of some of these instances, and also really getting comfortable and proactive in reaching out to other people who are doing this type of work, so you can ask some of these questions of people who have the experience, who are doing it day in and day out, because they are the ones, that will have the most current and logical answers for you as you lean into what you want to do next. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully this was helpful. I know there's a lot to think about. Again, we will be sending you this recording so you can go back and listen to it. You have the resources, or you will have the resources when we send that out. And we always appreciate you spending some time with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully in Big Marker as well, for our next webinars that are coming up.